Today, we return to Monkey. This mod, linked in the description, will change the government of every single nation in the world to a stateless society, notable for its minus 99% governing capacity. With this sudden massive shortage of governing capacity for basically every single country in the game, we are guaranteed to see some interesting stuff as time goes on. If you're excited to see what happens, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more content like this to come. Additionally, patrons get early access to all the videos on this channel, so check that out if you're interested. And real quick, before we continue the scenario, I need to give a massive shout out to World of Tanks for sponsoring this video. If you live under a rock and somehow don't know what this game is, World of Tanks is a free-to-play competitive PvP shooter for PC that allows you to take control of some of the most iconic heavy vehicles of history. The arsenal of tanks at your disposal is enormous, with tank destroyers and artillery at your fingertips, and of course the expected light, medium, and heavies with over 550 to choose from, so you can play how you want to play, with guns ablazing or take out your enemies from a distance. With over 100 million players registered already, there is no shortage to the massive battles that you can expect in the game, with arenas ranging from open fields to steep hills, dense forests to urban industrial zones. Luckily for you guys, it is currently Tank Mania, and that means when you register a new account for the first time using my link in the description or in the pinned comment, you will get some free goodies, and I know you guys love free stuff. Not only will you get 7 days of premium access and 250,000 credits to get you started, but you will also permanently unlock the British Excelsior Tier 5 tank alongside the Tiger 131, Cromwell B, and T-34-86M Tier 6 boyos for 10 games each. Again, register your new account using my link below for everything that I just mentioned. You gotta support companies that support content you love. Check out World of Tanks today. So this map is going to look exactly the same, and right now I'm currently tagged in as Austria because that is as soon as we unpause the game, we will get an event here that is going to return to Monkey, and the entire world will indeed return to Monkey. And you're not going to notice anything actually when you just look at it right here, but I think we can do a little bit of digging. It would appear that the Ottomans are indeed a stateless society, and actually everybody is a stateless society. Everybody in the world is now a stateless society. And if you don't know what a stateless society is, it was introduced in like 1.31 I think with Leviathan, but it gives morale and fort defense bonuses at the cost of massive governing capacity modifiers. Our people have consciously chosen not to organize into a state, simply preferring simple lives free of the oppressive hierarchies prevalent in the lowland realm. It is usually these 3 states over here. These 3 nations are the only stateless societies in the game. Sometimes nations that are released can have them. Like I remember one time I released a subject in Kazakh or something like that, and they were a stateless society for kind of no reason, because I was tribal. You know, sometimes it happens, but either way, this time around, everybody is stateless society, and that means there's going to be some issues with governing capacity. So now we're spectating, we have it on speed 5, we're going to unpause and see the chaos that will ensue. Just looking at China right off the bat, you can see them releasing so many different tags, and it's only going to get worse as they continue to have governing capacity issues. They are very, very, very high over their limit, and they'll just keep on releasing them until they can't release anymore. Just zoomed out, looking at it, just take a look. Sicily just popped out, Galicia popped out of Castile, England's probably going to end up releasing Wales, Kiev was just released by Lithuania. You can see the Ottomans are absolutely crumbling. They released Bulgaria in their entirety, and these newly released subjects are not always stateless societies, so things are actually going to be a little interesting because not everybody that's being released is going to be super weak. But you can see them releasing all these subjects, they're going to have some issues with loyalty, especially if they get involved in like literally a single bad war. So hopefully we're going to see some interesting stuff come out of this. And it appears that the 100 Years' War is inevitable. England is actually getting dominated in this war, but that's not really a huge surprise. France does have all of their subjects that they normally would. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these kind of scripted things are still going to happen, but we'll see exactly what the outcome really is. So I think it's safe to say that Europe is very much balkanized, but one thing you're going to notice is that Brittany is not. They've actually integrated all of their subjects, which is pretty interesting. Let's take a deeper look at that, and oh my god, they're a PU of Austria. Austria, who has lost all of their provinces except for Austria proper. So they're probably not going to get to hold on to the Stateless Society PU on Burgundy. And funnily enough, it looks like England lost the 100 Years' War, but these 2 subjects are both subjects of England. So they just pieced out and then released subjects. I don't know why, but that's a thing. So Austria has a couple of allies, but notably not a subject. Burgundy has broken free and is now an independent duchy, as is a bunch of these lads over here. So that is a thing. I imagine we're going to see a strong nation pop out of this area, but only time will tell. Meanwhile, there is a Haishi Ming punitive war, and yeah, it looks like Ming stepped in it. Because if you didn't know, being over your governing capacity increases stab costs, but it also increases advisor costs, gives malices to improve relations, but most importantly, cranks the crap out of AE impact as well as admin efficiency. So yeah, they can't take land, and if they do, they can't core it, especially more so if they're bigger. So Ming has some enemies over here in China. They also have some enemies in the Middle East as well as down in Africa. So yeah, everybody in the world hates the Ming, as are their subjects. Apparently every single one of them except for a couple of tributaries are about ready to break free.
Y'all, my daughter just took the messiest poop ever. I could not believe it. My wife called my name. I went into my room and the baby had poop coming out the top of her diaper in the front. It's crazy. That is actually crazy.
And speaking of messy poops, how about this Semian over here taking a messy poo on everybody over here in Eastern / the Horn of Africa? The Jews are rising up a chiefdom over here, a tribal monarchy. Very cool. Even better yet, they're actually converting a ton of stuff as well. And that's not too crazy considering the fact that they went religious and then they're going quality second. So these guys are having a really good start. Now, I'm dating myself whenever I say this, but whenever I see something like this, Nevarese, I always think Nerevarese, like from Morrowind, like the Nerevar. I don't know. I might be dating myself. All you Zoomers probably don't even know what Morrowind even was. But just under 40 years in, the Mamluks are in the #1 spot with France right behind them, followed by Poland, England, the Ottomans, Castile, Hungary, and then Venice rounding out the 8th spot with only 177 development. And I think the only reason the Mamluks haven't lost any land is because they literally cannot release anybody except for these guys over here. I don't know why they haven't released them, but yeah. The rest of the world is very much extremely balkanized. Many of those subjects being released are not stateless societies, so I think we're going to see some people rise from the ashes of their former overlords. And like Simeon down there, we should see some powers rising up regionally first and then globally after that. 1500, and we've actually already begun the Age of Reformation. We've got a few centers of Reformation and notably a Hussite boy. Moravia is our token Hussite of the campaign, with centers of Reformation in Cologne of all places, Erfurt over here in Thuringia, and Plzen in Bohemia. The HRE managed to pass 2 reforms, and they're still gaining a little bit, but probably not for long if I had to guess. Portugal went admin ideas first. Castile did not take an idea group yet, nor has England, and France went economic. So we probably are not going to see a whole lot of colonization, at least not early on. Also, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but Simeon has formed Ethiopia. It would be really cool if they could work their way through their mission tree and form Aksum. I would be super stoked about that, but it is the AI, so I wouldn't put too much faith in them. But just take a look over here in India. India is the HRE, at least it looks like it, but we do still have a fairly strong Bengal, Orissa, and out on the top here we have Punjab has popped out and is competing with Multan and Guj for hegemony in the area, so only time will tell. And in the 1570s, Europe is looking quite different. Specifically, I got my eyes over here on Anatolia. The Ottomans are 2 provinces, with Byzantium and Bulgaria eating up the majority of their development over here, and Germian over here taking over a majority of the internal development of Anatolia. France has been reduced to just 2 provinces, one controlled by rebels, and Wales has popped out of England. Leon and Valencia have eaten up a majority of the land over here in Castile, causing the most gruesome border war I can imagine. 2 Sicilies has formed, which is always cool to see. And Danish Russia is a thing right next to this Nizhny Novgorod over here in the north. So yeah, doesn't look like Muscovy had a very good game. Circassia looked over at Crimea and said, "Look at me, I am Crimea now." Look at the color for this Isfahan nation. That is cool. Very dark, deep blue. I really like it. Lubeck decided that they wanted all of the northern coast. Now, the colonial game is still very slow to happen. We do have a couple of colonies over here, one for Galicia up in Bermuda. We have Leonese Caribbean, and then we have Danish Florida. But aside from that, it is very barren considering it's almost 1600. West Africa is very much still a mess, with Kabu taking over the majority of the coast over there, and then Benin in this Fara Ngumura, or however it's pronounced, over here in the south. Central Africa looks remarkably similar to 1444, as does East Africa, but it looks like Madagascar has been consolidated by Antamoro. India looks pretty similar, except for when you get up there in the north and you see Punjab looking very spicy. Now, sadly, they are not Sikhs, they are Hindu, but you know, hey, you can't win them all. It is Tonkin time over here, and China looking very different. Shun up here, and then I think Chi is how you pronounce that over here, with Chi down here in the south, with a couple of random provinces mixed in. But we do still have a Ming, one province minor Ming, so can't count them out just yet. Manchuria is definitely still a mess, but Korea is still very much Korea. Meanwhile, Japan continues their civil strife and are not even kind of close to uniting. The religious map mode is an absolute mess. We have a very strong Protestant Reformation in Germany, both France and England, but also a large portion of Italy is reformed, and the Hussites over here have spread, and there's actually two Hussite nations, though one is a stateless society, so probably not gonna last too long. And I almost forgot to mention it, but Ethiopia all the way up, bordering the Mediterranean and Egypt, and doing quite well. And 50 years later, they're still going incredibly strong. Ethiopia looking like they may end up eking out the champion this round. Though there are some big blobby boys. We've got Punjab, Kazakh, Shun, Xi, bunches of guys over here in China. Bulgaria, Byzantium, and Germian fighting for dominance over here in Anatolia and Bulgaria, with Europe as a whole still very much divided. Moldavia, Moravia looking pretty good. Saxony's doing okay, and Lubeck still hanging on in the north there, though Hainaut did quite a bit of consolidation over there in the lowlands, and Burgundy, as well as Champagne, Orléans, Auvergne. Those guys are all holding on tight to their French territories. And meanwhile, Leon and Valencia continue to dominate over here in Iberia. It's still anybody's game at this point, though. Holland, with their capital over here in Brazil. Leon continues to colonize the West Indies, and Denmark continues to colonize Florida as well as Texas, apparently. We also have some Danish colonies up here in New England, but we also have some Asturias provinces now getting in on the colonial game. With 200 years left in the game, Ethiopia well out in front, over double Denmark's development, with Valencia, Byzantium, Punjab, Leon, Lubeck, and Xi finishing it out. Though if Xi had the institutions embraced, they would actually be number 2. But yeah, only 2 of 5 is pretty bad for them. I am really curious who is going to come out on top here. It really is anybody's game. And once we get those advanced CBs with imperialism and, more importantly, nationalism, I think we're going to see borders cleaning up quite a bit. And in 1712, with a little over 100 years left in the game, we have an Inca who has united and has the entirety of the Incan tribes people united. Meanwhile, the colonial game is picking up. We have Asturias down here with Leon in Brazil, as well as in the West Indies, and then we have Dutch Columbia. I said it was probably going to form. We also have Leonese Mexico, as well as Danish Mexico. New Denmark continues to grow, but new Asturias definitely doing a good go at it, and then Asturian Canada rounding out the colonial game. Ah, yes, the Flemish Cape of Good Hope, of course. The age of blobbing is upon us. Kabu in West Africa and Valencia in North Africa, as well as in Iberia, with a massive Ethiopia taking up the majority of the eastern parts of Africa, all the way up into Anatolia, if you can believe it. They even have Crete. So clearly they're doing good. But how about that Styria and Moravia looking good? Leon has been sliced and diced by Valencia. Probably explains why they're putting so much effort into their colonial game. Now, I said that this Hainaut was probably going to form the Netherlands. It looks like they didn't, and instead they decided to conquer Britain. Splitting it with Scotland, of all people. And I have to say, I love it. I feel like this is like every video we see an independent Isle of Man and that beautiful, beautiful hat. I would wear that hat. Would you wear that hat? I want to wear that hat. Russia remains divided between Denmark and this Nizhny Novgorod, and we do, of course, have a Prussia that has formed. I think it was formed by Danzig, if I want to say, because they are an independent kingdom. They are not a stateless society, so they clearly have some potential. Also, Theodora still exists. 4 provinces, stateless society. Punjab facing off with Winnie the Pooh, Xi over here, and they are growing. They've also grown down into the East Indies, into Southeast Asia, so to be respected, I think. And meanwhile, Chi has migrated up into Manchuria and Korea, as well as northern Japan. So yeah, that's a thing. Moravia has passed Ethiopia, but it looks like it's only because of institution, though Xi has caught up and is now in the 3rd spot, with Punjab behind them, Denmark behind them, with Valencia, Byzantium in the 7th spot, and Hainaut over there in the 8th. So can't say I would have thought that this is what the great powers would look like here with a little over 100 years left, but Only time will tell what it looks like at the end. And in 1821, there is one stateless society in the top 8 great powers, and that is Denmark. Ethiopia and Punjab finished neck and neck for the #1 spot, with Xi in number 3, though they are currently getting their teeth kicked in by Punjab. Following them is Valencia, Moravia, then Denmark, a stateless society, followed by Asturias and the Netherlands. The Netherlands being a Frisian nation, don't forget it. And honestly, the only reason Denmark was able to finish out in the top 8 was because of their colonial empire, which has almost as much development as they do individually. These borders between Cebu, Valencia, and Ethiopia are absolutely beautiful, though I have to say, Ethiopia killing Byzantium kind of puts a little damper on my spirits. Jermian, with their cool looking fez, is a 1-province minor in Trabzon. And as I said, Punjab finishes the round beating the tar out of Xi, which is hilarious. Xi has also taken over a bunch of land down here in Malaya, and there's a couple of other people, but how about that Welsh Australia? Turns out the western parts of Australia loves shagging them sheep. We also have New Holland and, of course, Welsh Australia. The Dutch Moluccas, also known as the East Indies, letting them spices flow. And our boner boys, shout out the boner boys, still hanging out over here on the island. Japan was united, and Manchu, a stateless society, was formed by, I think it was that Jiangsu, I believe it was. Moravia, Prussia, and Lubeck all did pretty well up there in the northern and eastern parts of Europe. I want to say that Styria formed Austria, but I could be wrong. I don't actually know. Pope Man going strong over here in Italy, right next to Lucca, doing pretty good, with Milan right next to them as well. Though I have to say, France and Britain are still an absolute mess. France did end up reforming, and I assume it was like Champagne, maybe, that did it, or Orleans. But how about that Scotland, man? Scotland all the way from Desmond looping around to Kent. Beautiful. The New World is a bit of a mixed bag, with Asturias over here on the eastern and the northern parts, with Denmark over in Florida all the way to Louisiana through Mexico. We have Chinese over here in California, as well as Cascadia right alongside their Dutch counterparts. But we can't forget about the pockets of the Flemish who are hanging out over here as well. Mexico is all Leon for the most part, with Dutch Columbia being a thing. Funnily enough, the Mosquito Kingdom, with this dude's hat that looks like a Rubik's Cube or something, hanging out over here in their historical land. The Leonese West Indies continued to colonize all the way down to Guyana and into Brazil. And Dutch Peru, with modern Peruvian borders, if I recall, with Asturian Peru in not Peru, Asturian La Plata, and Leonese Brazil rounding out the rest of it. And of course, the best form of Guinea, Welsh Guinea. We were just talking about it in a Discord that I'm in. You guys ever heard of a toast sandwich? I think that might be a Welsh thing. And it looks like the Boers are getting pushed out of South Africa again, this time by Mutapa. And now this is probably my favorite religious map mode that I have seen in a long time in this game. Catholics are essentially only in Iberia as well as Italy, but also Scandinavia, with the majority of the dev in Northern Europe Protestant outside of Scandinavia, with Hussite a very dominant faith over here in the central/eastern portions of the region. Bavaria is also a Hussite nation, as is Hesse and Anhalt. Moldavia remained Orthodox while surrounded by Jews and Hussites. That's good. The Sicilians are Reformed. They're the only ones in the region, but then up here in Venice and most of France is also Reformed. And of course, across the channel, everything is Reformed. And then in North America, it's mostly Protestant and Catholic, with the South looking very similar to the North. Lots of feet lovers over here in Africa, but that's nothing surprising. But how about that Jewish Renaissance, baby? Punjab pushed Hinduism all the way over to the Caspian almost, and well down into Burma and into China, all the way through Tibet, so they did really good. And the rest of the faiths over here are an absolute mess, with some Buddhists, some Confucians, some Tengris, and some Shintos all over the place. I have nothing to say about the mess that is going on in Australia and New Zealand, and a Greek-Jewish Constantinople owned by Ethiopia. Truly the most base timeline I can imagine. A couple of provinces here and there converted, maybe like some provinces over here to Austrian, but aside from that, most of the cultures look very similar, to be honest with you. It does look like the Catalans pushed the Aragonians back out of Valencia, and Manchu did pretty good, joining the Chinese group. And how about this Webi province up here in the north? This Punjabi culture looks a little different from what I would have expected it in 1444. I think that they did a bit of conversion, and I assume this Bihari and Bengali also were spread by the Punjabs. There was definitely some culture conversions that happened over here at the hands of the Ethiopians. Some Turks were converted to Syrian, and definitely it looks like this Khalji was pushed over into Persia. And I don't know if Somali is this big in 1444, but it's pretty big this time around, like 20-30 provinces. And of course, Frisian and Flemish here in South Africa. South America is mostly Iberian with Platinian, Leonese, and Mexican, but we do also have some Frisian and then some native cultures over here. North America also quite Mexican, specifically in Mexico and Canada, with Castilian over here on the coast, Danish taking up the majority of the culture on the interior of America, and Flemish and Frisian making up the left coast. Turns out that these people don't mind poo-poo in their streets. As always, the mod is going to be linked in the description, so feel free to check that out. And while you're down there, leave a comment. Let me know what you'd like to see next on the channel. Like the video if you haven't already, and subscribe for more content to come. If you want early access to this video like the cool people on my Patreon, you can check it out, linked in the description below. And if you want to join my Discord, my subreddit, or my Twitter, those things are all linked in the description as well. That's all I got for you for today. I hope you're all having an absolutely wonderful day. And until next time, stay chill.